And now for my next number, I'd like to return to the
classic.
Hello vinyl community, Alex back again with another video. I'm here with the 2021 vinyl tag. I didn't do last year's vinyl tag. I normally do the vinyl tags every year, but I didn't do the one for 2020 because there was literally about 10 questions I didn't have an answer to, so there was no point. This time I've got an answer for every question. There was one question that really made me think about the answer, and so it was really difficult to sort of compile something, but I got there in the end, and so I'll show you what my answers are. I had to watch Andrew from Tyler the Creator, his video, to sort of understand what one of the questions was asking. I also saw Robert Walker's video. Oh, that's it. I just saw those two videos. So, just to give me an idea, I hope I haven't copied any answers. I don't think I have. But let's just get straight into it here, obviously. Starting off with a discovery in 2020. 2020, I sort of discovered a lot of new music, and what this question was sort of asking was not a new album from 2020, but something new to you from 2020. And while there was some new things that came out in 2020 that were still sort of new to me, I went with an album that sort of left me a little bit speechless when I first listened to it. Ike Quebec's Blue and Sentimental album. I didn't realise that I'd already seen it in the vinyl community, because I sort of bought it on a whim because it was on Blue Note, but I didn't realise Nas Nomad had already showed this. But yeah, this album really blew me away. It's Ike Quebec's a saxophonist, and he's got Grant Green on here, he's got Paul Chambers on here, and Philly Joe Jones on the drums on this track. Also Sonny Clark features on one of the tracks where he plays piano, and Sam Jones is replacing Paul Chambers on bass for one of the tracks. But this album really blew me away. I think I listened to it about 3 times the same night that I picked this up and brought it home. It just blew me away that much. Yeah, fantastic jazz album, very chilled, very relaxing, very, very nice. So that was probably my favourite find, and it was a blind buy as well, like I said. So that was probably one of the best things I discovered in 2020. At least for me, anyways. A quarantine buy. So obviously in 2020, most of us got put in quarantine because of the coronavirus breakout, and so I didn't make too many purchases in quarantine because obviously I don't like buying too many things online that are second hand, but I did manage to track down a copy of Gary Taylor's Compilation album. This I had been looking for ages, and so I used the time in quarantine to finally bite the bullet, buy it online instead of trying to wait for a copy to come from my hands out in the wild. Compassion and Lonely Heart are the two big songs on this album. This is actually his second album. He originally was on A&M Records. He put one album out with them, and then he put out a single as a promo, and then got dropped from the label because they lost faith in him, and then was re-signed to 10 Records, and his career just sort of blew up after that. But yeah, great album from him. If you're going to have a career-defining album, then this is going to be the one. But fantastic R&B soul album, just incredible stuff, and I'm so glad that, I think this was the first album I picked up in quarantine, if I'm not mistaken, but definitely one that I spun loads after getting it. So yeah, Gary Taylor's Compassion. Great R&B soul album there. Question 3, I believe we're on. Yeah. An LP you want to find in 2021. This one, I have a list about as long as both of my arms and my legs of stuff that I'm looking for. But I think the thing highest on my list... You struggling there?
Sorry.
I just watched you struggle. I didn't even offer to help. I'm a terrible fiance.
You'll film my videos.
I know. But yeah, the thing probably on the highest on my list, one thing I've got my heart set on for 2021, well, there's two things I've sort of got my sights set on for 2021. First is getting more reggae into my collection, because that section's a little bit small compared to the rest of my collection. But I also want to get complete on Eminem's discography. And the one album I want from him is the Bad Meets Evil album that he put out with Royce da 5'9" back in 2011. When that album came out, I was 14, I think, and it just blew me away. And there's only one vinyl pressing of it now. It's not been reissued or anything, but already the originals fetch for like £150, something like that. But I would love to have a copy of that album. Hopefully it gets reissued. If not, I'll maybe have to splurge on an original. If I can't, then I'll just have to wait till one comes from my hands. But Bad Meets Evil, the Eminem and Royce da 5'9" album, is probably my number one thing on my wants list for 2021. But I don't know if I'll get it, because like I said, it easily sells for £150 upwards, triple figures maybe. So I may not get it, but you never know. I found stuff that I've been looking for before when I haven't been looking for it, mind you. But it happens. So question 4 is show a box set. I don't have many box sets. Box sets are something I'm not actively seeking out. But this is probably my favourite box set in my entire collection. Is the Public Enemy Live in Metropolis Studios box set. It's actually a very thin box set. But yeah, Public Enemy's Live at Metropolis Studios. It's not a very thick box set. Really what this is, it just contains the album Live at Metropolis Studios on a double clear vinyl pressing. It has a 2 CD set in it, and then a Blu-ray containing the live performance of the show, as well as a booklet. I think this is maybe the second box set I owned. Like I said, I don't own many. I might own like 2 or 3, but I really don't have many box sets, and this is probably my favourite one. Yeah, Public Enemy's Live at Metropolis Studios is probably my favourite box set out of the 2 or 3 I own. It even says on the back what it has. Runtime for the Blu-ray is 117 minutes. 1 disc, 1080p. Yeah, great live album from them. It was shot in London. Obviously, Metropolis Studios is in London, but great box set from them. One of my favourite live albums for sure. Obviously not as good as actually being there, but hopefully one day I'll see Public Enemy. But this was a fantastic find for me, and I still love that box set and don't get enough of it. So that's my box set pick for question 4. Question 5 is a concept album. Obviously there's loads of these. I tried to pick one that maybe not everyone's going to pick, and that's Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City. I don't know if this is officially a concept album or not, but it sort of tells the story of Kendrick growing up in, well, not just Kendrick, but a young boy growing up on the streets of Compton, just in Kendrick Lamar's words. And obviously he's got a track on here with J-Rock, Drake, Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige. Just an incredible album. Probably my favourite from Kendrick. But yeah, just tells an incredible story about growing up in Compton, and one that I cannot recommend enough. Next question. An album where an artist or band changed directions. So obviously loads of bands changed their directions over time. I mean, probably David Bowie's probably the most famous one, because with every album he literally changed his style up. But for me, the one that came to mind immediately is Arctic Monkeys' Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, the most recent album, studio album I should say, from them. What happened with this was the lead singer Alex Turner, he was writing the album on the guitar originally, but he struggled to finish writing any songs, so basically suffered writer's block, and so he started writing it on the piano and it just flew. So instead of being a bit more indie rock based than their previous works, this is a lot more chilled back, a lot more synth bass, a lot more space rocky than their previous albums, and so it split Arctic Monkeys fans right down the middle. And they didn't release any singles either, so nobody knew what to expect. A lot of people were just assuming it was going to be a standard Arctic Monkeys album, and a lot of fans were disappointed when this is what they got. Even some people I've even seen who weren't fans of Arctic Monkeys before also really like this album. So it's got a very select target audience, and the only real reason I've kept it up to this point is because I get everything from Arctic Monkeys. But this is, well, my least favourite. Was one of my, I did like it a lot more when it came out, but not one that I like as much anymore. Definitely a massive change in direction for them. I don't know if the rest of their albums are going to sound like this, but it was definitely a very huge shift from AM, the album they put out before this, to this. You can definitely see a massive shift in style there. So Arctic Monkeys, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino made my list. A white label promo. I'm not actively seeking out white label promos. As a matter of fact, I don't think I have any albums. I did check all my promos. None of them are white labels. I only have some 12 inches, so I'm going to have to go with Weeks and Company Go With The Flow. On 12 inch, Prelude. You can't really see it that well, actually, you can't see it at all. But it's normally a red label with a dance floor on the bottom, and then Prelude and written like that. Yeah, I should have pulled another example, really, but you guys, I'll probably show a picture somewhere around here of what the label actually looks like. But yeah, this is the white label promo. I'm not, like I said, not actively seeking these out, but anytime I find one, it does pique my interest because I do like a white label. But this is very nice to have, especially being soul and on one of my favourite record labels. So obviously had to pick that up. A compilation album, and obviously I went with probably mine and my fiance's favourite compilation album. Not only did she buy me this, she's always saying, "Can you play the 80s one?" So yeah, 80s. It's this 80s compilation. It has everything from Queen to Blondie to the Human League to ABC, Culture Club, Genesis, Simple Minds, Billy Joel, Ray Parker Jr., Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes, Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, some UB40. Yeah, just obviously one of the best 80s compilations I've ever come across, and I was lucky when she got this for me, so thank you.
Right, it's a great album.
We probably listened to it about 1 million times in 2020 alone, so yeah, obviously I had to give that one another mention. So there's the 80s compilation. An album that tells a story. So the story behind the album I'm going to show, well, actually, let me show you first. It's Arcadia, So Red the Rose, a new wave album. the story behind this actually comes from my dad. We were at a car boot sale one day, and I found a Duran Duran 12-inch single that on one of the stalls, and I picked it up. And so when we got home, my dad just found all of his Duran Duran albums and 12 inches and just gave them to me. But in those were also all 3 12-inch singles for Arcadia. And ever since then, I had been trying to track down a copy of Arcadia's So Red the Rose, and it was getting to that point where I nearly did buy it online. And as soon as I thought about buying it online, it came through the store that I work in. So very happy with that. Arcadia's So Red the Rose, a fantastic new wave album, a little side project of one of the members of Duran Duran. Yeah, Roger Taylor. Also has Nick Rhodes and Simon Le Bon. Nice little side project of the members of Duran Duran, and that's basically how I discovered this. And yeah, this was a kind of a recommendation from my dad, but it started out as me liking Duran Duran, and so he recommended Arcadia, and that's really the story behind that. Obviously, I've got loads of albums with stories behind them, but that's one I don't really think I've told that often, so I went with that one. An album that needs a vinyl pressing. I pulled a CD for this because obviously it's not on vinyl. But that is Story of the Year's Black Swan. Don't know how well you're going to be able to see it because of the glare and stuff. But I've talked about this before. Every time I talk about an album that needs a vinyl pressing, I talk about this album. It's a metal album. They're one of my favourite metal bands. They're very underrated in my opinion. This is their album from 2008, and I really do wish this album had a vinyl pressing, but it doesn't. The only way it exists is on CD. Yeah, Wake Up, The Antidote, the title track, all great stuff. Really love this album, and I really wish that they had more of their stuff on vinyl, and they did. Unfortunately they don't, and hopefully one day they will. If they get a bit more popular, hopefully they'll reissue their stuff. They do have their most recent album out on vinyl, but they didn't press many, so that's already stupid amounts of money. But hopefully this one gets reissued at some point and does get a vinyl reissue. Okay, now we can get to a common album and an uncommon album. Obviously there's loads of common albums, and it also varies from like area to area. So what's common for me might not be common for you, and so I've had to go with something that I see all the time, no matter where I go, and that's Electric Light Orchestra, Out of the Blue. Obviously Turn to Stone's on here, Sweet Talking Woman, Mr. Blue Sky, Wild West Hero, Jungle, Big Wheels, Standing in the Rain. Yeah, just an incredible album. Really love this one from ELO. Obviously the most popular because of Guardians of the Galaxy as well. A couple years ago it had a massive resurgence for Mr. Blue Sky. But yeah, fantastic album from ELO, and I see that one all the time. Maybe you guys don't, but I definitely see it an awful lot. And then an uncommon album, and I was glad when this got reissued a couple of years ago. Well, actually, yeah, last year this reissue would be, is Roy Ayers, Silver Vibrations. Don't see this album very often, and when you do, it's crazy amounts of money. But this reissue is very, very good on PVE Records. So if you want a good reissue of this, definitely grab this one. You don't see it too often, but very, 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 very nice album from Roy Ayers. Yeah, nice. I like it. Don't really know what else to say. It's Roy Ayers. It sounds like the rest of Roy Ayers' stuff. It's nice. An EP. This is a band I used to talk about a lot, and then They haven't really put anything out since like last year, so I haven't really spoken about them much. But that is Cigarettes After Sex. One of the fastest growing word of mouth bands, I think, in recent years. This is their EP, just titled, I. Literally the letter I is the name of the EP. Nothing's Gonna Hurt You Baby was the massive song on here, and that has about 400 million views or something, I think. I could be wrong, but that is the song everybody knows from them, and it's on this EP. But everything they do is just fantastic, and yeah, this is an EP that you can still get pretty cheap, at least until maybe they reissue it, I don't know, but for now it's still reasonably priced and great EP to listen to if you like a bit more chilled sort of. I'd put them in shoegaze, but oh well. That's the best way I can describe them, sort of chilled shoegaze. A girl group. Again, I could have gone with a few soul groups, because I don't have many girl groups outside of that. I mean, I know I have ABBA, but they're not technically a girl group because there's two men in it. So I was stumped with this one. I just ended up going for the Supremes. New Ways, but Love Stays. Do love the Supremes. I'll grab anything from them. This album particularly has the song Stoned Love on it, which was their massive single from 1970. But yeah, the Supremes, fantastic stuff. Love that one. An album cover you love. I have been talking about this album cover a lot since it came out, and with good reason as well, because it is a pretty fantastic album cover. It's Flying Lotus's Flamegras, or Flamegras, however you pronounce it. That's the cover there, but the cool thing about this, and I always show this off, and this is the reason I love the album itself, is because it pops up like that, which I think is really cool, especially if you look at what's on it, like all the detail and stuff. I think it's meant to be telling like a story, but it definitely does look really cool, and just the way it's packaged and stuff, and what an incredible and even if I open it this way, you can see the full cover there. It's an incredible album cover, and I love it. And every time I pull this album to listen to it, I just cannot get over how cool that album cover is. If you could hear that, by the way, don't worry, it's not people outside being shot, it's just Jenny playing Grand Theft Auto. But yeah. An album that you've listened to the most. I've listened to so many albums on repeat so many times, but there's one album I always come back to, and it is my favourite album of all time. Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life. I'm always listening to this, particularly the songs on it from Love's in Need of Love Today, Village Ghettoland, Sir Duke, I Wish, Pastime Paradise, Isn't She Lovely, Join Inside My Tears. Brilliant album, love it. Can't get enough of this album, and it nearly came under album cover that I love, because I do love that album cover, but no, this maybe is the album I've listened to the most in my life, just because it is my favourite album ever. An album you had to have an OG copy of. Now, obviously a lot of people have a debate whether the original or the reissue sounds better. In my case, I'll always try and get an original, and if the original sounds crap, then I'll get a reissue. Or either way, if the original is expensive, then I'll just get a reissue and hope the reissue sounds decent. But for me, I had to get an original copy of Sting's 10 Summer's Tale, my favourite Sting album. If I Ever Lose My Faith in You, Fields of Gold, obviously. Brilliant album. One of the best musicians still living today, and what an incredible album. I had to have an original copy of this. I think it has a reissue, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is one I did want an original of, because, I mean, well, I went through that phase of getting all the stuff by the Police and Sting, but this is the only one I have, so I'm glad if the only one I'm going to have by Sting is this, and I'm glad that it's an original. The last album you purchased. I actually talked about this not too long ago in my last vinyl finds of 2020. It's Arctic Monkeys live at Royal Albert Hall. It came out at the end of November, beginning of December, somewhere around there. But they made no money off this album at all. Every penny goes to the War Child charity. This was a show they did in 2018, just as their album Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino was coming out. And although I didn't see them at this show, I saw them later on in the year after the album came out. But fantastic show, one of the best live albums I've heard in a very long time. And yeah, this is the most recent album that I have purchased, and I'm glad it is, because it's a fantastic live recording. So, an album they don't get. So what's an album that you get that other people won't? I had to really think about this one. Like, really think, because most of what I pick up, half of the stuff I pick up is influenced by you guys, and half the stuff I picked up is sort of either a blind buy or off my own back. So this is one that I found and I've recommended to people, and they're like, I don't get it. It's basically 80s hip hop from the 90s. But Nemesis, Munchies for Your Bass is the album that I am talking about. I have recommended this to a lot of hip hop people who say they listen to 80s hip hop, and none of them like it at all, and I sit here like, I don't get it. The song Let's Have a Good Times does have a sample of Led Zeppelin's Whole Lot of Love on it, and I know this guy in the middle sort of looks like Ice Cube in that photo, but I promise you he isn't. Actually, he kind of does in that photo as well, but I promise you it's not Ice Cube. This is actually a really underrated album, and I don't know why more people don't like it, but I know they got on the bandwagon a bit late, because this is from 1991, right as what we now call boom bap hip hop was coming into the mainstream of hip hop, where people like Gang Starr, Naughty by Nature, NWA, they were all coming through, and anyone who was popular in the 80s wasn't really making anything big. Nemesis was sort of copying what was going on in the 80s and doing it in the 90s when it wasn't really popular. So no one really got on this, and everyone I've recommended it to don't like it. So I want to know what's up. But yeah, Nemesis, Munchies for Your Bass. Huh? Yeah, I nearly did. Good job I caught it. But yeah, Nemesis, Munchies for Your Bass. It's my answer for album normally don't get. A punk album or the closest thing you have to it. Obviously, not the biggest fan of punk. I don't have a lot of punk. Actually, I think the closest thing I've maybe have is like post-punk or post-punk revival or Beastie Boys, License to Ill. Say what you will, technically still a transition from being a punk band based in Brooklyn to a full-on 80s hip-hop band. This is still sort of punky, still has punk elements to it. So despite what you say, this is technically the closest thing I have to a punk album. And yeah, Beastie Boys, License to Ill, the closest thing that I have, personally, to a punk album. Okay, we're on the last question now. Question 20. Your favourite 2020 reissue? I've not been keeping up with the reissues of 2020. Obviously, you've had Bee Gees reissues all on coloured vinyl, or the ABBA reissues on coloured vinyl. Prince reissues on coloured vinyl, which I was debating. Saying Sign of the Times was my favourite reissue, but it had to be one that I talked about in my last Vinyl Finds video, and this is down to my brothers for getting me this for Christmas. Like I said in that video, it's the soundtrack to Cowboy Bebop, which is my favourite anime show. And the soundtrack's been out on vinyl before in bootlegs, came out late in 2018, and that very limited edition, so now that stretches for hundreds of pounds. Luckily this reissue came out and I finally have the soundtrack to my favourite anime, and if it wasn't for this I probably would have had to go with Prince's Sign of the Times for my favourite 2020 reissue. That was a close second, don't get me wrong, but I really loved this. As a pressing overall, I think Sign of the Times is better, but this is just my favourite because of, you know, what it means to me and the fact it's my favourite anime show. Right, so with that does it for this video, the Vinyl Tag 2021. Thanks so much for tuning into the video. Let me know if you've done a Vinyl Tag for 2021, because I'd really love to check it out, see what your answers to these were. And also subscribe to you if you're a new channel to me or whatever. Hope you guys enjoyed. Give a thumbs up if you did. Subscribe if you're new here, because, you know, I could do with all the help. And, well, stay tuned for more. Bye!